What's up, everybody? In this video, becoming a medium later in life, opening spiritual portals you once slammed shut.
As for those of you that do not know us yet, I'm Heather.
And I'm David.
From sunrosegarden.com.
Yes. Helping people create
badass lives. All right. Today's topic comes from a question from one of our viewers. Question is from Jerica of Texas. I've got it up on my screen up here, so I'm going to read it to you. She says, I'm 41 years old and have recently lost my father. When I was little, I could see spirits, but shut it off because the pastor told me it was dangerous and possibly evil. I lost my father this year to cancer, and right after he passed, I seem to be opening back up. I have all kinds of fear around it, but at the same time, I want to explore my gifts, but don't know how to start. Thank you, by the way, for all you do. Some of your videos really helped me get through the rough time I had losing my father.
Aww.
I love that.
Thank you, Jerica. We want to help Jerica. So let's help Jerica. We want to know, have you had similar experiences? Were you open as a child and then closed it down, and now you're afraid of opening back up because you don't know what you might open? You don't know what's on the other side. So
if this sounds familiar, you are in the right place today. I know that many people, many of our clients have gone through that fear. Like, it's either one thing or the other, right? It's like, I'm afraid because all of a sudden it's open, or I closed it down and I can't open it back up and I don't know how to start. So both of those are issues that continue.
So let's quickly cover some reasons why this might happen. Okay. And then we're going to go into some action items to help you smooth that process of opening those gifts.
Right. But first, why? The most common thing that we see about why it opens and closes is trauma. So trauma can open it up or it can shut it down.
Whether it's death in the family, divorce, those are some big ones. Life transitions, anytime that we lose a job, anytime that we have a new relationship, things like that, those can open it back up.
Sometimes it's when you're a kid, people making fun of your gift. You feel some sort of shame around it, so you shut it down. It can happen both ways. So trauma when you're younger, and then trauma when you are older can open it back up in a very shocking, kind of startling way.
And at first, you might experience an excitement when you first reopen, but then again, you might also freak out, or you might be doing both.
Right. Yeah, both is pretty common.
Right.
We've got two guidelines for you. We wanted to keep it simple this morning because there's a lot of work to do around opening back up. The first and most important one is to work on the fears of the past.
Yep.
So you may have seen things when you're little that scared you, right? And now your little child is right here in the present, even though you think you're an adult, and is scared to see those things again. So you might be a grown person opening your gifts back up, but they're scary just like you were when you were that little kid, right? So you're not really reacting as an adult.
So the tip is to work on those fears around why you closed down in the first place. And keep in mind that that kid didn't have the tools to understand what was going on.
So we see this happening a lot because the people that are reopening don't realize that a lot of the fears are not present.
Right.
It's their inner child that is still kind of shut down. It's coming out and going, ah.
And I want to address the word present here for a moment. When she's talking about present, she's talking about current time, because those fears are present. They are there, but they are not from right now.
So we find this is one of the first things that you really should work on when you start to open up, is to look at those fears and what they are. So here's one scenario. If you had an emotionally unstable or abusive childhood, chances, and I remember I said trauma can open you up and be very sensitive. So if you were in an unstable or abusive childhood, you may have been really open to spirits in general, or psychic information, or your spidey senses were really on alert. So often the things that you see in that environment are colored by that fear. It's colored by your emotional state. So everything you see in the spirit world or feel is going to be scary.
And here's the thing, when it comes to the emotional state and what you're going through, if you're in a highly traumatic experience growing up, or you're in an emotionally unstable setting when you're growing up, what's happening is that, first off, the psychic development and mediumship development, all of that is a function of your mind. And when your mind is in a high freak out state, it's going to go on overdrive. which is going to open you up to a lot more of your mind, reaching out there with your spidey senses going, okay, where's the danger? So you're going to open up more to where's the danger, including spiritual awakenings, including psychic development, psychic opening, things like that happen because you're in a high trauma state and your animal brain, your primal brain is on high alert.
So we see this happening with a lot of empaths that can't control their empathy. So they can't go out in public. They pick up on too much on other people's energy because they're kind of in that fight or flight still in some sense. So the place where you develop the psychic awareness and the subconscious, where your deeper fears are stored, are kind of like side by side. So you've got to kind of clear out that space so that the psychic information can have more clarity.
Yes.
So
now that you're an adult, you know better. So your adult mind is like, okay, yeah, I don't need to be afraid of these things. But that child part that's still in the trauma state that got locked away to protect itself, and this is again a function of mind, your mind protected yourself by locking these parts of yourself down. You know better, but some of those fears are still alive in the background from that child self and manifesting in anything that is coming through and coloring that kind of information that's coming through. It's just information. It's just a storyline coming in, but because your fears are still unresolved in the background, they're kind of the static on the line.
So the first thing you do when you reopen is to stop and address any fears that are coming up or any that are coming up before you really start tuning into what's going on in the spirit world.
Yeah.
And this way you can see more clearly what is coming through, and it probably is not as scary as you think. We tend to define it with our fear before we really see it for what it is.
Right.
And this is, I think, first and foremost, the thing that you should be aware of when your gifts are opening up, because sometimes they just like open up and you're like, what do I do?
One of the biggest things to any kind of psychic development or mediumship development or anything like that is working on the emotional foundation underneath. Once you do that, then you start opening to the information without the reaction. And it's probably not actually as scary as you're thinking it is, or as scary as your child self is thinking that it is.
And this is also the second part of this we want to tell you, and that is the tip number 2. Like I said, we want to keep it simple because these are such wax on, wax off things when it comes to really mastering your gifts.
Yep.
So tip number 2,
stabilize your space and master your emotions.
So the first part is really working on those primal things that are coming out for you. The second is stabilizing your space. And in traditional mediumship, we spend a lot of time in training this space so that you have control over what's going on. Not in I got to control things kind of fearful way, but in I'm mastering my space.
Right.
Part of mastering your space
is mastering
yourself. So to stabilize the space, you need to learn the practical work and the real tools of mediumship instead of spinning around in circles without guidance, which we see a lot of people do. A lot of people do.
Yep. So instead of spinning around in circles without guidance, it's really good to have a solid base of information and a place for you to learn actual tools from, because the mind is scared of anything that it doesn't know. So the best way to counter that is to get to know it, get to know the thing, get to know the tools, get to know your mind, get to know all of those pieces and parts and build your foundation so it's solid and strong and you can become more clear with information that's coming through.
So part of stabilizing the space, I do that, I don't know why, is learning the art of mastering your own emotions.
Yep.
So the first part is mastering your fears, conquering your fears. The second part is the art of mastering your emotions and your energy. And there are techniques for that.
So this is basically the point where you start facing your demons and slaying your dragons.
That's kind of the first part.
Slaying your dragons, going deep into your underworld and kind of facing those fears that you once had so that you come out on the other side stronger. It's one of the scariest things that we have to do in the beginning, but the more that you do it, the better you get at it.
So I hope this makes sense to you. And we really wanted to address it because, getting the letter from Jericho this week, I'm like, this is like a carbon copy of so many
questions that we have coming through the door.
Right. For people that open up, because we coach, and when you're going through any kind of trauma like grief or death, stuff just blasts open.
Yeah. So, and it's really good to have a coach walk you through that underworld.
If you truly want to master your gifts as well as your life, we have found in our work that self-growth and developing your intuition go hand in hand. Even if your goal is not to pursue a career in the intuitive arts, intuition is an important part, very important part of making the right decisions for your life. So we've crafted this twofold path to help you do that conveniently with us in an online setting instead of our private one-on-one coaching that we do in person or Skype or whatever.
Right. And because both of these are so interwoven, as you work on the mental and the emotional parts of your life, you're going to begin opening your intuition stronger. As you work on your intuition, you're going to have to address the emotional and mental parts of your life. So they're all interwoven.
But this is why we created this pathway this way, because this is the way they did it old school, you know, with the shamans and the old traditional way of teaching. But what we found the last several years is because it's so convenient online and we can just get books that people tend to work on the bougie, the cool stuff, the intuition, all of that, but neglect the self-growth stuff. Eventually, they might get really good at the psychic and intuitive stuff. But what happens after a while, if this is neglected, this starts to raise up and sabotage your work that you've done.
And I want to address that for a moment. When we're talking about getting really good at the psychic development or the mediumship development or the intuitive development, you're getting really good at the skill. You're not necessarily getting really good at the clarity of information, because you need to do the mental and the emotional work to build that foundation to clear the static on your line so that you get more clear messages and more clear information and more clear intuition.
So let me tell you about this twofold path that we created, because this is why, and you'll see. First, we have Zen Ed Self-Growth Academy, and this is where we teach all of our professional intuitive mastery courses. Right now in there, we're teaching our 20-course Medium's Survival Guide.
20 lesson.
20 lesson, that goes over all of the mastery of mediumship.
We've also got our Psychic Development for Beginners course in there. We've got any of our courses in there that the Zen Ed Academy gets access to as far as the intuitive mastery.
So it's sort of a convenient place for you to work on your self-growth and intuitive development at your own pace.
Right.
We get deep, we get vulnerable.
All of the replay masterclasses that we've already done. So any replay masterclass that we've done, you get access to, and those are some really, really awesome topics to help you with your personal development, with your self-growth.
Our goal is to give people a complete holistic education, whether you're going to go into the intuitive arts or you just want to have a badass life. If you are not ready to do either of those, we always have our free back group, which is really fun, where you get self-growth tips like this every week and free resources, access to kind of binge watch those and get yourself in a more steady place.
So click the link in the description to get started for the option that works best for you. Get started creating that badass life and working on those psychic tools. If you like this video,
hit the like button.
If this video helped you in any way,
be sure to share it with a friend.
If you've got any questions,
let us know in the comments below. We do love to hear from you. Give us your questions so we can answer them in future videos.
Absolutely. For more badass life tips, be sure to
subscribe
and click the bell
to turn notifications on,
so you're the first to know
when we drop a new video or go live.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you guys in the next video.
All right. We know you could be anywhere else in the world. Thank you for joining us and spending your time with us, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
See you soon, guys.